Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of art and popular cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, Miguel Aido,
Ciao.
and Leonardo Miranda.
Hey guys.
Today we talk about Medea, but before any ado, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or simply give us a like. Medea is a 1969 Italian film written and directed by Pier Paolo Pasolini, based on the ancient myth of Medea. The film stars opera singer Maria Callas in her only film role and is largely a faithful portrayal of the myth of Jason and the Argonauts and the events of Euripides' play Medea. At the time, the film received mixed critical reviews, but gained increasing recognition over the years as a significant work within the director's filmography and European cinema, regarded as one of the central works of Pasolini's mythological phase, alongside films like Oedipus Rex. Nevertheless, what did Royale Without Cheese truly think of Medea's vengeance against Jason's loverboy antics in the ever-so-poetic but hermetic world of Pasolini? Well, fellas, what do we say?
I was lost.
I see Miguel deflated. Die.
This was not an easy film.
Easy
to watch.
digest. No, it wasn't an easy digest. But I'll say
Man.
this: it was an easier watch for me than it was Trust.
This is insane.
Oh yeah, I dislike Trust. I have to say. So
That is-
I was very invested in in Medea, at least in the first half of it. Then the second part becomes, I think, when she arrives in the land of Jason, it becomes more and more difficult to accompany it, and cryptic and very closed world onto itself. But Trust, to me, there was a lot that I did not connect, I have to say. But
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 this is not
anyway,
the movie to be
That's not the
addressed.
one.
this is not the movie
Not
to be
talking about
discussed
Trust.
right now. So
The one we are
Medea,
addressing is the worst one
Medea.
of the.
Well, my
Out of
tell
context,
us
it's
what-
like, why are we comparing Medea to Trust? It's such
exactly,
a random
exactly,
thing.
because it's not a double bill episode. It's just
No,
Because
but
two
that's how
episodes coming out.
Royale works.
You can
Yeah,
compare
yeah.
anything. Anything can be compared.
It's true. The truth of the matter is, these are two episodes coming out at the same time, the usual of our releases. But coming back around to Medea, Miguel, do tell us, bring us to your journey of experience as you first started watching the film. What ran through your mind?
Hey, it's Pasolini, man.
I mean,
Watch it.
yeah, that's my problem. Like in addressing my experience of the film, because I do want to say, yeah, it's him. It's worth it's worth the benefit of the doubt and so on and so forth. But I mean, I was just so bored and confused. It's like, I mean, mostly I was confused. I think visually the film is pretty engaging. It has pretty great sets and cinematography. But I mean, I could not understand the story, and I mean, and I read the sort of the general, synopsis of the myth before, just because, in this sort of stories, I think it's kind of important to have context.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But regardless, I mean, I didn't see what I had read, and I just found it very. I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, it's very sparse in terms of dialogue. I mean, there's hardly any dialogue for like 1 hour, which makes it difficult because everything in terms of information is only really conveyed here and there, very, very rarely. And I don't know, I just feel like if you don't know the story very well and have every detail sort of in your head before, it's kind of hard to keep track of the characters and the backstory. And I don't know, it's just one of those films that made me feel really uncultured. Like, damn, I don't know any of this Greek stuff. I really didn't. And the film
Yeah.
doesn't make like an excellent work at making you feel like anyone can access the story. It seems very like made by a specific person for a specific audience. It's almost like it doesn't like the audience. It's very like made for him, for the director, and I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it because I also read that it had to do that the story was also sort of a push towards the acting role of Maria. So I think there's a lot to this film, in the behind the scenes. But ultimately, just to wrap it up, I mean, in terms of my experience, it was just incomplete. I didn't feel like I really saw the film. I felt like I was in a haze, and I need to rewatch it probably more than once again. So I don't know.
I liked some things about it, but I mostly was just trying to understand the story at all points, trying to like go back. Like, what? Wait, they're discussing things because then the Wikipedia page, which is something I do, and I'm trying to catch up, so I go read the synopsis, and they write it in a very linear way. And the film is not really that linear sometimes. Like there's moments that happen that they're discussing things that haven't quite happened yet. And it's very confusing. It's like there's a scene where she's talking, like she's like, Bambini, come in. And they come in, the kids, and Jason comes in too. And she's like talking to him about, you're going to marry the girl, but you're going to keep the kids here or something like that. And I'm like, what girl? Like, what are we talking about? And then a couple scenes later, I think it's the father of that girl because I can't even explain anything of what I'm saying, honestly. I have no clue. Like, because I think it's a vision. I think she first has a vision of giving the girl glossy.
There are visions somewhere in the film.
Yeah, so she gives her this offering, and then she starts burning up. And then later we see again another version of that, but it's not like she's not burning up. I think it's just she's being poisoned or something like that.
Yeah, and then she falls over the building.
Yeah, exactly. So you see, it's almost we see
before, I
two
think
versions of
it's-
the same event, but
Yeah.
one is more of a vision and the other is the actual thing. And in between those two moments, there's a scene with the father of that woman where he's like, "You're weird, Medea. Get out of here. Like, I'm sorry. I don't like you. You're kind of creepy. So get out." And she's like, "Give me a day. Give me a day." And okay. But like, but the scene before with the vision, I was like very confused because they're referring to things that I think in the story, at least, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I don't think they had addressed it yet. So it's like confusing. But it is, I mean, there's interesting things, visually speaking, especially. I think the film uses a lot of like handheld, which it's not really something that I would expect for a film about like this mythology. You sort of build an idea in your mind of how those sort of films look like, and it's not necessarily like this. There's weird shots, the way they're framed. There's like a shot of, I think it's Maria Callas. She's walking around, and like she's almost, it's almost just the sky, and a bit of her head is showing in the at the bottom of the screen, and she's running around. It's like very weirdly framed. So, I was always a bit engaged just on a visual level. But yeah, it's a bewildering film, I guess. It's like,
Mas
Yeah, I feel,
clearly had the time of his life.
yeah, he loved
No,
it.
no,
He
no,
was
no,
super
no, I did
entertained.
not.
He had popcorn.
Yeah. No, it was. I think the film. I think the film to me was only ingratiated ever more because of my experience with Trust, where I was expecting an indie film from the '90s that I was really going to enjoy, and did not. And then I go to Medea, and I am flabbergasted with his visual prowess and poeticness of Pasolini in the first couple of like in the first hour or so, where I am with him, so to speak, and I'm really engaged. And then, I mean, the rest of it. Once they return, once Jason and the Argonauts, together with Medea, returns to his homeland with her and starts building her life, I am very much confused, as much as yourselves, about what the rest of the story is, and fair. I mean, being bored is a legitimate feeling because at times you are and are completely lost. And there are moments where I swear I gain amnesia regarding this film. I don't know, I don't remember events or quite how they connect together because also Pasolini does not care about creating an emotional bond in between the character's actions and why they decided to do such things. I mean, the very relationship of love between them, Jason and Medea, is like, when did this happen and why? Nothing. Just granted. But also at the same time, you do feel like Pasolini is taking this from a very specific approach, where he very intentionally wants to take up a centuries-old story, a myth, from the human, imagination that combines kind of, how myths are, there's kind of used to explain big phenomena and in the world of nature and so on, combining the fantasy and reality and one and then kind of become one and the same. And there's this beauty, I think, about the opening and how it can elucidate you for the rest of the film, because you have the Centaur explaining to Jason what his life is going to be like, almost predicting the future of the myth of Jason and the Argonauts and how he's going to come in contact with Medea, steal the Golden Fleece and so on, and begin a family with her. But beware of the dangers you will find along the way. And in that first monologue, Pasolini kind of uses a lot of it to sort of present to the audience in a poetic way what the main ideas of the film themes could be, and then the rest he leaves up to, visual flair. Because I think he's very much stating to the audience this myth, and I see Miguel's skeptical face like...
No, because I'm thinking about that scene and I was immediately lost in that scene.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
it's
think
like
about
he
your face
starts-
like this
because the
Centaur
film-
guy.
No, you don't understand. Just let me just say this, because
Go ahead.
you have the credits very slow, very like landscapey, and then immediately
yes.
you cut to the inside of the cave thing, his house, whatever, the hut,
Yeah.
and immediately goes like really quickly, speaking about how he's not his son and he's the son of that guy who is the father of the sister, and it's like
that was confusing.
Who?
and it's just going on and with names and the village, and he came back and he's like, dude, I'm just trying to settle in on my seat. Relax.
Yeah. No. He's not interested in you relaxing. He's interested in poking you with the
He's
stick with poetics.
Take the notepad, write it down. All the
write it
people
down.
they connect. It's like
Exactly. But I think he's doing it very aware that you're not gonna remember any of this, are you?
probably.
I don't think so. So
but,
fuck it.
But then what's the point
Yeah.
if there is an awareness that you're confusing your audience? I mean, if you know that who is he doing this for then? I mean, that's what I
I
wonder,
think the
because
hope
Yeah.
is that you'll get, the general idea and the general mood of it, but I kind of don't. Like, I don't really connect to it, like, beyond, like, I think Maria Callas, like, has a presence that is very interesting, and I really like watching her. That's what keeps me more in the film. But, like, emotionally, I don't really understand her and her
Oh
struggle.
yeah, definitely.
Like,
I don't understand the
weird.
struggle, but no, forget about
There's so
emotional
many other-
connection.
so many other elements, like the acting beyond Maria is very kind of poor, and I'm not even
Because
talking
they're
about
non-actors,
the ADR thing. I mean, it's just seeing the way they act beyond just the lines. It's very like, okay, yeah, I get it, they're not actors, but I mean, you're really struggling here to keep my attention, man. I mean, just piling up things that don't make it easy for the audience.
Yeah, it's true. I understand that. But hey, my take on the beginning is this, to me, as I see it, as I felt, he very purposefully starts telling this whole shebang story of his heritage and whatnot, what his future is going to be, to then tell, you know what, you're not going to remember any of this. So, to then go on a tirade, because, he kind of provokes the audience. You're expecting to be this very point A to B and C story, but it's not going to be it, or it's going to be it, but I'm going to destitute everything about his narrative of logic and just present to you in the most bare bones way possible, in just visual, what we would call signs, images, in the linguistic of poetics of Pasolini, in the sense that he does not see cinema as something akin to, literary prose, where everything needs to make causal sense, which comes at the risk of nobody understanding you, man, grantedly, but at the same time, okay, that's his take, that's his commitment. Okay, I see what he's doing. I need to either to some degree accept it. In some areas, I'm accept that I also am going to be lost, that he's kind of doing it for himself. But in some ways, I do see what he's trying to do, I think, at least in feeling. For example, when the monologue of the Centaur starts to go into this beautiful place of having him, having the Centaur, this mentor figure to Jason, and looking at his adoptive son, looking at the sea, picking up the bugs and whatnot, and start talking about these ideas that start making more or less sense and start being the totems of the film, which are that at this point in time, ages ago in the history of man, reality and myth were binding together. The ancient man, if he looked at the sky, if he looked at fire, he would experience it with as much presence, has, or better, even more presence than the modern man who looks at these natural things and feels nothing. Because in the era of, kind of post-war Italy, consumed by consumerism America, that's often what Pasolini kind of criticizes in his film, is that he feels that his society is destitute of just a feeling of being there in the moment. So I think he kind of goes away to the ancient times and retrieves this ancient myth story to kind of like investigate these ancient rituals and this very primitive way of behaving, and with the feelings. For example, when you have like Medea's ritual in her foreign land, in Africa, in Colchi, I think it's where he goes to get the golden fleece. That's a beautiful, first sequence of the film where you kind of see at the visuals working at their most basic level, just showing this ritual where they're killing this guy, making this sacrifice, and you see both death and rebirth, and beauty and horror of being human. There's no words, just the act itself of killing someone, this hideous thing, chopping him in half, but then somehow redistributing this man over the kids, over the grandfathers, over the grandmothers, and using him as a way to somehow appease the gods in their heads and make the crops grow. And this idea that in a very far away, but also not very distant past, in the sense of how old the earth is, people would behave like this in this gruesome and horrible way, but yet at the same time be so ever more connected with the earth, connected to each other, in this community spirit. There's something of beauty in that, in how there's that proximity of those two values, violence and something that is very familial between people, Anyway, that's how I read the first monologue. A sense of nostalgia for that time, the good and the bad, and how the choice in interpreting all these events in the myth in a very pure visual way is that he doesn't want to have words in the way of showing all of this, because if you can show these images, all these feelings, all these primitive gestures in their truest form if you are silent and you just witness them, as if you were an alien from a modern man who just drops in time back there and is flushed into this, into these human beings behaving like this, who don't have the infrastructures we have today to be concerned with, are not civilized at all. What would be their concerns? What would be their modes of thinking? Maybe they would think in these very extreme ways of, okay, he wants to marry another broad? Fine, I'll infanticide my children, These very broad gestures who can only be translated in a silent way, the camera just observing. And that can give them this kind of epic, proportion. But then once they return to the land of Jason, it's very difficult to kind of go along with these ideas and continue with them, because it becomes the introduction of the king's daughter and the king himself is very murky in the way they come into the whole fold. So they really complicate things further. By the way, one of the things that completes this idea of the modern man and the Asian man, how we've lost something akin to that childhood innocence that looks at the world and is not thinking about, greater complexities of life through these other infrastructures, is when he re-meets his mentor figure of the Centaur. And he very, he very explicitly says, this is the Centaur, your mentor, as he was when you were a kid. This is the Centaur that you see your mentor as you were when you grew up and became a man. Almost like he's saying, he's still there, the old Centaur, the one who you remember from your childhood, but he's desecrated by this image of the, there's something in there to that dialect, I think, of, you grow up. If you
Whatever you say, man.
Whatever you say, man.
Whatever you say.
It's not up to me.
You become old and you forget to be a child, so to speak. Those simpler times. So to put it on simpler terms. Now, the story itself, beyond that, becomes very complicated to accompany. I don't fucking remember what happens afterwards, like when it comes to the daughter, etc.
I'm surprised you even managed to understand up until the hour point, because that's a lot. I mean, you said that only after the 1 hour mark you started to feel a bit confused. I mean, man, I didn't make it to the hour point.
You were like 5 minutes in. You were
Props. No, yeah. I basically, as soon as the credits stopped, I was.
Whoa,
All right, the credit you understood. You're like, okay, I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Okay, I get.
Yeah,
I understand.
that's pretty much the
That's
same with
fine.
me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the centaur
Return,
appears, he
yes.
starts talking. I'm like, man,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I gotta pause
I'm
this and go
gonna
read the
a beard and
Wikipedia,
two
man.
hooves, 4 hooves. I'm like, I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting face, the centaur guy, I have
Yeah.
to say.
And
Yeah,
the eyes.
Very
He's got
interesting face. And the eyes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just something about these 70s guys. I don't know what they would do. Very
Yeah.
specific face.
69. 69, it's not 70s yet.
69 and 60,
The
69.
movie did
yeah.
remind me of like The Other Side of the Wind, the film within a film.
Ah, right,
You
okay.
know, just because
That's
when I see these
specific.
movies, these art house movies of, Italians, immediately I think of the fake film in that film, which is like
Yeah.
a parody kind of those films as
Yeah.
well. But
And I also thought that it was like, oh, how charming! Like he's trying to pretend that he's a centaur, and I clearly can tell that those first two legs are his real legs, and the beyond part is fake. But I was like, yeah, okay, fine, I can get along with it.
Okay,
I thought it
but-
was funny.
Look, all right.
That was like, how can you, do it differently? I mean,
Yeah, of course. But I thought, you know what? Yeah, good for you. Like, I would
you were
do
like,
the same thing.
I know why he
but
isn't
it had-
moving. Don't
Yeah,
give
yeah,
it away.
But I always thought it was, the first time you see it, it's framed in the way where, okay, fine, I can go along. But the second time they frame it,
Yeah.
which is from the front, I was like, no.
Come on,
No.
move.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
Start running.
No, I
Why
can't
don't you
see
run?
that. Yeah. What's that? Well, what are you doing with those legs?
Let's move around.
Anyway.
Let's move around.
And also the logistics of the geography of the place. It just seems to change so much. The way that buildings look and how there's a patio and a castle, and it is strange. Marvelous landscapes. This was
Sure,
shot in
yeah.
Turkey.
Production
But,
design,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
great, man. The music as well, even though sometimes it's a bit strange, but
I really like the
sometimes
The
it's like
guitar.
they used clapping, like literal clapping of people,
All
like
right.
in a theater, like in some scenes I remember. I think it was the ritual one when that was over, and it seemed like they cued in like clapping of people.
It's like the
That was
laugh
so
track,
silly.
like a sitcom.
Right.
Yeah, literally like a laugh track, but people
Clap
clapping.
track.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, sometimes it was a bit strange, but overall I think it fitted the mood. So
The first hour to me was kind of like, Jason is promised his golden fleece in exchange.
did they even say Jason, or do they use the Italian name?
Well,
Yeah, the subtitle says
Giasone.
Jason. Giasone.
something like that.
Right.
Which
I
is
don't
pretty
even think-
close.
Yeah.
I was
don't
expecting
think-
that Jason
but
was
is it
translated something
is
completely
Jason
different.
the actual like name in English, or is that just
I
the
think it
subtitles?
It is.
Ah, okay.
It is in English. It is. There's an actual movie as well called Jason and the Argonauts
Ah, okay.
as well from the 60s. So yeah, I don't know how it is in actual Greek, but
But I mean, I gotta say, you said before, like, I mean, that you felt this epicness a bit in the first hour. I think you said that, right?
Mhm.
I mean, personally, I didn't really feel that.
I felt
and
the
I-
ideas that I described, not so much epicness, but the ideas that I described of something lost in the past of man that was lost through the advent of industrialization and modernization, and
Yeah, I mean-
kind of forgetting the simplicity of the childhood of mankind, where there were these horrible acts, but at the same time somehow you were more connected to nature, to the earth, and you would look at the sky, and granted you'd have to be gullible enough to think there would be this some kind of God would be everywhere and everything was magical. But at the same time, it's what made everything so special. So there's something of beautiful about that. That's what I'm arguing, and that's what I feel in the first part of the film. Then the story, so to speak, starts with Jason and these other characters that come in with the daughter of the king and the actual myth of him betraying Medea, which I kind of, I needed to reread Wikipedia to understand it because I didn't pick all those things up. So because in the setup, everything is more, to me, was more or less conceivable, accessible. Oh, Medea, this woman from a foreign land. Jason, you know that he has this goal of getting the golden fleece. Medea is the sorceress woman. She goes through a trial of fire to sort of become pure. I don't know. She sees the golden fleece. Some things are not very understandable, like simple action. She sees the golden fleece. She throws herself at her. Okay, what are you doing? And suddenly she's in a conspiracy thing with this other guy, who a ritualistic dude, one of the priests, to steal the fleece. So it's not even like the myth, I guess, where she steals it with Jason. She gets on a carriage, she goes with this guy away with the fleece, so she's the only one stealing the fleece first. Then Jason comes along, I want the fleece. She gets in the carriage with her. I don't know if there's raping there involved or not. She starts banging on the carriage, and I don't know what's happening inside. I don't quite remember. And then they go away. I guess she's kidnapped by him with the Argonauts on the little boat they have, the raft. And then to go on the other side, and she's completely distraught that these guys are not like her tribe. I think somehow Jason has forgotten the olden ways, the myths, the rituals, because she's always saying, "You have to mark the center. You have to mark the center. What are you doing?" Almost like you need to sanctify, your food or whatever. There's a moment where they're eating, and they don't do any of that, and they kind of mock her by kind of singing along and etc. And she goes away, and then then is where this, kind of this, it's a very hermetically closed film in its meanings, because then you know, Pasolini, you can alienate people, but only so far, because then you start thinking like, okay, she has been quasi kidnapped. Why is she getting in bed with Jason? I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of weird, those little things, those transitions don't
Because
make
there's
sense.
also a time leap in different times, but there's one which is, on top of everything that is confusing, when you suddenly see the kids much more grown up. And so on top of all these
Oh
things, there's
yeah, oh
also
yeah,
time leaps and different jumps
true.
that make make everything a bit hard to understand. And I think that kind of relates to what you're saying, because I think through that leap their relationship, I mean, naturally developed. So I think it becomes a bit clearer in that sense, because they took the time to get to know each other, I suppose. But yeah, in the beginning I was also like, who is this guy? Why are you with him? But I mean, I didn't even know who she was to begin with. I mean, I knew she was Medea, but I don't know her, like,
Yeah.
character-wise. I was like, what do you want? What are you looking for? I mean,
Yeah, this is inevitably,
it
this is one of the
annoys me,
reasons.
this.
I think this might be an interesting analogy, is that it's a unique film, and you can admire it for what it is and what he's trying to kind of achieve. And in the first kind of hour, you can have a sense of these ideas, but it's always at an intellectual level that the film may attract, and attracts me, because then at an emotional level, which comprises of the very thing that binds you to the movie and keeps you engaged, and to be emotionally entangled with these characters and caring for them, what they seek, why they do what they do,
Yeah, but I mean,
is to
if it's
then make you
just
feel, no, no,
if it's
I'm with
just
you
an
now.
intellectual level, this it's not a film though. I
No,
mean,
no,
a
that's what I'm
film.
saying now. That's what I'm saying. Is that at the emotional level, when you don't work that out, you do risk the fact that, because why is the emotionality there to begin with? It's for you to create an empathic relationship with the character, so much so that you are open to read their actions and what they're seeking, and make from them what are kind of the ideas that the film wants to explore. Because then, if not, you shut yourself completely to the film, which happens. Like later on, I shut myself completely to the film. By the end, I was bored. By the end, I was like, Jesus, this is difficult. But so it's a mixed bag of things that I like, but also being very difficult to access.
I mean, part of what I was saying before, that the film didn't feel epic, was also because sometimes his camera transitions were a bit like
But I
very.
don't think it's trying to be epic, very, very much so.
I know. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a conscious effort. I'm just saying that through just his taste, his wanting to do things the way he does,
Uh huh.
it never, for me, it never really goes in the direction of a film that could really sort of mimic that spirit that you were describing of an epic tale. everything is very toned down, you know. It's like sometimes it's like you're watching a documentary in the way that it pans, and sometimes it shifts to handheld, and in a very sort of contained way. Also with the actors being non-actors, everything has a sort of a. I mean, it's not like an amateur vibe, but it's almost like the scenes are not very ambitious somehow. I don't know how to describe it, but sometimes it feels like they end very quickly and don't sort of move towards a bigger rush and a sense uh, of excitement or I don't know. It's tough to word it, but it's something like this. And so when I meant this of the epic thing, it's all of these elements. You know, you put them together, and the end result is kind of something that doesn't feel like it took off.
I would refrain from saying if I ever said if it ever seemed like I was underlining the epicness of the movie, I'll
No,
retract
you
that
weren't.
because
You weren't.
yeah, okay. Because if anything, epic is epic for me because of how he takes advantage of the geographic landscape
Yes,
of this
but
region in
that
Turkey.
primal thing,
Hmm.
I don't know. For me, it's a thing on itself, and so it's
A
I
thing on
think epic.
itself. What do you mean?
Yes, I think it. There are two different things. It's definitely that sort of instinctual primal thing. Did you have, for example, you've seen the film Walkabout? I think.
Oh yeah,
From
yeah. Great
right?
film. Great
And
film.
it definitely has that too, even though it's set in modern times or
Yes,
when the
yes,
film came
yes.
out. Perhaps even more so than this film. Um, paradoxically, because this is a sort of an epic Greek
Well,
tale.
yeah.
No, because
No, no,
it's
no. I'm
a
just
Greek
joking. I'm
tale,
just joking.
so
I just thought it was funny. I made a little laugh at it because paradoxically, anyway, the
I know a
Walkabout
word.
movie. Anyway, continue, continue. I'm just joking with you. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and so, but even that one, I wouldn't say it's epic. It's this vibe of something that speaks to a time before anyone was here, and which to me is a little different. It speaks more to this primal mood than an epic thing, and so which is
So that's
fine.
just you trying to delineate two different ideas that you like to. Right,
Yeah, and so to
right.
me, this film definitely has that side that you said, instinctual, but not epic for me. I mean, this is all very sort of academic. The differences
Well,
of
I agree with you because I actually like the documentary aesthetic because it's not expected and it's very
yeah.
70s. So you create
Yeah.
this sort of cinema verite feel to it. It does destitute the film from being what you expect an epic on the one hand. On the other hand, you are craving for that, right? The big wide shots, still frame, etc., sweeping pen, kind of things. But it doesn't happen. But yeah, the epicness is not there in that sense. If anything, I'm very curious for the nature of where he shot these things and etc. I knew the name of the region, but now it evades me. It's complicated.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It looks amazing. And it's nice, like seeing people
It's
all dressed
it's
up
kind of
in
oh
these
yeah, 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 yeah.
like in castles around rocks. It's like it's a
Because those
contrast.
are volcanic formations in Turkey, which inhabitants carved out and create these houses, and they were kind of places of Christendom in 300 AD and so forth. So yeah, early Christianity that is,
But I mean,
which is
just to be
interesting
clear,
in
my
Turkey.
main
Yeah.
thing with it's not even the documentary aesthetic with non-actors. I like all that, and I think it's something cool to see from a story they sold, trying to sort of almost replicate real time and real events in a very sort of with non-actors too. I think
Uh
there's
huh.
something very interesting about that, and then actually using the places and going there and effectively using great production design and costumes. For me, the real thing that loses me, it's the story. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I
the
mean,
For sure.
focus there
Yeah.
for makes you kind of think you're missing out on all these things that he clearly also thought of, which were well achieved.
if you do not know the myth very well or haven't read the poetry or etc., then it's difficult. Which I haven't, and
I'd go
so
so far as say you have to be like an expert
oh yeah,
in Greek
but he renders the
mythology
experience
and
to that level. Yeah,
texts
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
because it's yeah, I mean and even then, I think you might struggle to understand. Is this the element that I know of the story? Because probably, I mean, it's confusing to that extent. I don't know.
Because, like, what is the point of the story, of this story, like with Medea? Like, what is the tale and the moral of it? That's what I struggle
In
with.
the original tale, as I've researched,
No,
what I came
but
to
we're talking about the film, not the
No,
original,
but let's. No,
man.
but I want to know the original. I want to know the original. Because then, by comparison, it makes like. Because I want to see what is missing from the film.
what I found out about what the myth meant in terms of its moral lesson, because often myths have moral lessons about human behavior and so forth. And this is so to see what is escaping from the film, which actually is. I don't think there isn't an afterthought in the film about the ideas of the myth. Is that the myth, what it deals with, is number one, what vengeance produces, is that sometimes the feelings, because essentially what the story is, to recap, is that Medea feels herself betrayed by her own husband Jason when he decides to break their marriage and marry Gosha, the daughter of this king of his land. And so what Medea does in her rage is to kill their children, effectively killing his heritage, his legacy. And so it's a story of vengeance and how vengeance can be the very contrary to justice. A person who is thinking of seeking injustice is actually seeking vengeance. And so Batman learned his lesson. Bruce Wayne. And then the other thing is how women in Greece, and even it can be translated in modern times, were relegated to this position of a secondary role, and the man can do everything he wants, basically. So those are the two
Yeah,
things.
no, there's definitely a
Now-
sort of feminist empowerment theme going with the story.
Yeah, and she's a sorceress, so she's strange. She doesn't belong. Go away.
But the vengeance
woman,
one, the vengeance one is much murkier. Because at the end of the day, she kills her kids, and you don't really understand
Yeah.
leading up to the death and
how
after
it
the
matters.
death. What led her to do this in such a way? We don't feel the poignancy of decision of this action. And the after the fact, there's no after the fact. She kills them. Jason is all like, why did you kill them? Why did you kill them? Like with the bad dub. And then she's like, hey! And ends. Like,
And on top of
scream
the
rage.
fact that it's such a decision, like the story focuses on you getting to a point where the mother kills the children. I mean, if you don't get there fully
Which is
well
pretty extreme.
justified, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, you better, make it so that, okay, maybe this, I understand her, but I mean, it's difficult as it is on top of a story that lacks focus. I mean, you just get to that point and you think, what the hell is she doing?
Yeah. 'Cause,
So it's even harder to justify it.
Yeah, the funny thing is that even myths and fables, the thing with myths and fables is that characters often make decisions that come out of the blue, are very simplistic, but they have a logic to it. There's a lack in the character's previous world or what she's trying to find, that she's trying to fill. So the decision might be simple, the outcome might be easy coming, but it always comes from a place of need, of lack. And there's always some semblance of a causality that leads us to understand why the narrative goes in this direction. The thing is, Pasolini disbands. He's trying to take up this myth, but he disbands that causality. He disbands any emotionality. So how can you follow it along? It's difficult to accompany it. I would like to have a conversation with the man himself, but unfortunately we can't, because it would be interesting to see, just his take and ideas on it, and just to confront him, and just to see if you get enraged. so to see, I think it would be an interesting conversation, because it's such an inaccessible film, that the most interesting thing that could come out of it would also be a conversation with the author himself. What did you mean by this? Like why? Like why did you went this way? Etc. Just
because even the question of her supposedly, she's this sorcerer, this figure that has a lot of power. Like in the first hour, that's what we see.
Doesn't come into play all that much.
Yeah, but in the first hour, like she's this figure, like they're doing rituals, and you kind of get the sense that she's overseeing it all. She has this powerful presence.
She's like priestess.
Yeah, exactly. And then supposedly what happens is that she becomes more conformed into this like wife role, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Mm-hmm.
don't. At least I didn't really feel that. I didn't really feel like that she had conformed. I didn't see that clearly in the film. It felt more like it was told to her. Like even I think the centaur says something about her not belonging and things like that. But it doesn't feel like we see her
Not belonging.
attempt. Yeah, no, see her not belong. Like attempt normalcy that she can't reach, and so
Yeah.
like her vengeful act and her madness, it feels just unearned. It doesn't feel like it makes narrative sense. It's very just kind of there. There's that moment where I think Jason is dancing and she goes close to it and she looks at him and starts crying. Like it feels like a scene that is sort of a climax of something, but in here it's more, it just happens. It's like, what's going on? I don't understand her thought process. And maybe that's wrong, like wanting to fully understand everything that she's thinking.
Mhm.
But I mean, am I crazy? I need some emotional
Of
access to
course,
this
yeah.
character.
Yeah.
I think part of what helps in that is that at that sort of hour mark half of the film, they kind of start to go more into the dialogue,
It is
more
true. They
heavy
start to go
information.
more. Yeah.
And I think that helps because suddenly, because she starts speaking so much, it's like some of the mystery of her muteness kind of fades away from before, and she no longer is this mysterious person that is just overseeing things and looking, important, and suddenly becomes just a mundane, everyday woman like the others. It just speaks and literally, I think part of it is just in her speaking more, just seeing her more as a person than this occult figure that she was appearing to be before.
I haven't seen anything else by Pasolini, so it's like I'm also
Well, I have
just
seen other
wondering.
films, but it was very
I'm not
distant
sure
in
if I have.
time. I've seen The Gospel According to Saint Matthew at the Cinematheque. You know, so
Ooh,
Portuguese Cinematheque.
Ooh,
So that was a cool. I liked
nice.
it, and that was a cool watch. It was interesting. I remember at the time enjoying it, and then I particularly like Akatone, which is probably one of his most narrative
Accessible.
films,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah, but that's really cool, and I've watched it more or less recently in the past couple of months. But I think those were the two I've seen. I don't think I've seen anything else. I want to see Sallow, but
Of course.
I need to manage to watch that. I'm not going to watch it on a big TV at home. So
Gather the
really, yeah,
family.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. So that lovely family film that is Sallow, of course. And yeah. Did you know how he died, Mike?
um, I'm gonna go with some sort of asphyxiation thing.
Asphyxiation.
Because of who
My
was the guy
God. What?
that she said that he died?
Yeah. Did you know that David Carradine from
And
Kill
David
Bill died of
Carradine. Yeah.
yes, asphyxiation? That was pretty wild. I didn't know
Right,
that.
that was in my mind suddenly.
No, I think yeah, I've read this a long time ago, but my memory is that my memory of 1960 something when I was there, no, is that he was murdered. He was
Wow.
run over by a car
Yeah.
several times. Yeah,
The
and I think he was
rumors
shot.
say it
Let
was
me just check
intentional.
again because I think yeah, they never found out
Yeah.
who killed him.
I think I think he was making a movie that was kind of controversial.
Mm.
I don't remember the story too
What a
well.
nice segue to our next film, because the lead in Trust was also murdered.
Yeah,
Ah,
that
yes, it's
is
true.
true.
It is true. It is true.
Adrian.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wait. He was murdered on the night of November 1 to the 2nd, 1975, in a dirt field outside a Rome. He was beaten with a wooden plank and then run over by his own car. His heart crushed.
Yeah, that's
Jesus Christ.
mafia. That's mafia job.
That's
That's a
mafia,
mafia
baby.
job. Like, what else could it
It's
be?
horrible. That's so sad. Jesus
What
Christ.
what would the mafia want with
I
a
think it was
poet
because of
Filmmaker.
filmmaker?
I do think it was,
Right.
but I'm not sure.
And he
Just
wasn't he
throwing out what
with an Italian prostitute or something like
maybe. I mean, yeah, possibly it was.
because I think they tried to blame it on the prostitute or something at the time. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you're just talking about something we don't know much about.
Yeah, I mean,
Throwing. Was it the prostitute?
the
I don't know.
Because I read this in itself is foggy because I read so long ago I forget the
Yeah.
details. So
I think
I'm spouting.
For our
semi-facts
listeners, this is
I
not
read.
fact-checked information.
this is not facts.
No,
this is
no,
just
this is
because
not
there's also
quotes RWC on this.
Very
there's a
foggy,
Japanese
very foggy.
filmmaker that was also killed
Uh-huh.
by the mafia, and now
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
that's
remember who is. Do you remember who that? Is the guy from Tampopo, I think.
Yes, I remember he's
right.
that guy. I don't remember his name.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if I'm
His
mixing
name
things
is,
up.
for the sake of identification, Juzo Itami.
Yeah, Giasone.
So that's all for today, folks. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and website pages. Feel free to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to see more videos like this, check out this next video right here. Thanks for listening and see you next time.
Ciao, ciao, a tutti,
Ciao, Bella.
ciao.
Ciao.